if anybody's misses the meeting, that they'll get caught up. So we're recording this. So we're going to start with some introductions, and just take a couple minutes each to introduce yourself, or less if you want. I'm Edwin Rutch, Director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. So for about 12, 13 years, I've been working on the topic of empathy. How do we build a more empathic culture? And started a website, the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy, and have been doing a lot of interviews about it, training, just kind of all kinds of different projects around how do we create more empathy in the world. I've interviewed probably several hundred people, authors especially, who have written books about empathy. And this is the center right here. You're seeing the center. And those two rows are all books on empathy. And I'm starting a new row. It's up on top there. It's about a quarter of the way. And I just did another interview yesterday with Shanti Garba, who's an NVC trainer. And he came out with a new book on empathy, and just interviewed him, just posted it. So anyway, I've been trying to just see how do we create more empathy, and started the Empathy Tent at Occupy Wall Street, and when it was here in Berkeley. And so just kind of looking at other ways of just have a lot of different projects around the topic of building that more empathic culture. So I'll just go down, here. Wilderness, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Wilderness. I am in Portland, and I'm really interested in MVC. I've been studying it for a couple years, and I'm doing a online program right now, actually, also. And I, just within that, have been more interested in like empathic listening. And so, I'm always kind of seeking out different people who are doing that. And so I came across, your program, and was just really impressed with what you guys were doing. I want to know more. And then reached out to Edwin about what's going on in Portland with it, and if we could, and he had mentioned that there was other people asking him from Portland also, so we put this together to see what kind of interest there was. So yeah, I just kind of want to see like how we can bring that to Portland if there's enough people to do it.
Yeah, cool. Then next was Courtney. Is it Courtney or? Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Courtney. I actually live in Bend in Central Oregon, but I'm in Portland quite a bit, and I have watched some of the events from Portland, I've just been really like upset and sad about it all, and I've been up for several of them, and I worked for a peacemaking organization for the last couple of years that's actually based in the Middle East, but I kind of headed up their US-based peacemaking. And so I've showed up at several rallies and events and things like that to try to listen with empathy and use nonviolent communication to try to kind of be a bridge and get people to talk in a place where there's a lot of shouting and no talking. And so I had also reached out to Edwin to see if there was any interest in starting an empathy tent type thing up here for those rallies, because the times that I have come up, I've been at a rally in Portland and one in Seattle and then one here in Bend, and I've done kind of different things at each one, but it would just be so much more effective if there were more of us. And I just feel like we need more of a presence for peacemaking and nonviolence. And so I'm excited to hear if there's any possibility of doing this together.
Okay, thanks. Tony?
Hey everybody, I'm in Southern California, the LA area, and I've gotten into NVC probably in the last few months, and I'm taking an online course with them on compassion, and empathy and compassion are kind of, I felt called to them recently that they were things I wanted to explore more. And yeah, I've just kind of jumped in wherever and in any way that I can, and stumbled across your work. And yeah, I'm just encouraged that this is something you're exploring, and that other people seem to be finding you and having an interest in it too is really, really nice. So thanks for having me, and nice to meet you all.
Okay, welcome. Bill?
I'm Bill Filler, and I'm a retired special education teacher. I taught for 37 years suicidal and emotionally disturbed adolescents. And basically, under the most trying of circumstances, you tried to build a culture of empathy. And so I thought my work was done, and I looked out, and I feel that it isn't done. So increasing communication and effective communication, and also the healing that comes with people being heard, is something I think is seminal to us being successful as a species. So that's why I'm here.
And you're part of the Berkeley Empathy Tent team.
Yeah. I'm here in the SF Bay area. Sorry.
So Celia?
Hi, I'm Celia Kieft. I taught for 27 years parent effectiveness, teacher effectiveness, and leader effectiveness training from Thomas Gordon. And empathy has always had a major draw to me, and I called my own business New Empathic Awareness, and I wanted to know more about it, get more and more specific in it. And I also was trained in metaphysics and in sociocracy, meaning decision-making with consent of all. Even if you're 3 years old, doesn't matter. You still can be part of a decision-making. And that combination led me to create my own training, which I started this year. And I'm very happy to have started the 4th training already this year. So, and the first advanced one will start next week. So I'm really thrilled that my own training comes out. I'm part of Edwin's empathy team, #1. And I'm really happy to contribute in thinking about creating an online specific empathic listening course. So specific that aspect. How can you help people to go through a short course and get it and use it straight away. And I'm thrilled to see you all here. Oh yeah, and last week I stepped up my empathy tent, and I don't know if it's this a moment to talk about that.
Sure, say a little bit about
okay.
Norman, Oklahoma empathy.
Yeah, I am in Norman, Oklahoma, in the middle of the country. And at one point, my son, when I came here 2 years ago, he said, well, don't expect anybody like-minded. And I thought, okay, I'm going to find them. And I started a group, Norman Alternative, and meanwhile I have 250 people there. So, and in a center here, I started the empathy tent during the art walk. Here, every second Friday of the month is in Norman, is the art walk, and the center that I teach my trainings is now part of art walk. And I thought, first thing I wanted to do, I said, okay, I'm going to set up an empathy tent. And I had finally, people coming in and saying hi, but not really sitting yet. And then finally, a couple and a child sat down on the chairs. And I explained a little bit, and I empathically listened to the husband. And then I wanted to encourage him to practice those things that he just received to his wife. And at that moment, the wind came and blew the whole tent up. So that was kind of, oh man. And then the rain drizzled, so we had to wrap it all and go inside. So that, but it was well announced, and I hope to do it now every month. So This is not in the political arena yet, or I don't know how that may happen by people sitting there and starting talking about it. But it's more I hope on a personal level, and see how the empathy tent works there.
Okay, thanks, Celia. Fred?
Well, see, I'm here because you're here. I earlier was talking about our prison project. Well, I've sent the curriculum of our prison project out to 7 different states and 3 foreign countries, including Oklahoma. That's it. I didn't really stick Oklahoma in the foreign country part. Right? About 2 months ago, an inmate that I've been in correspondence with for over about 3 years, called up and said he wants me to come out and start a program up out there. So I'm looking for people in Oklahoma that would like to do a prison project. What do you think? Want to play?
I'm pretty much stuck to Norman, also because I want to live by bike, not by car.
Yeah.
But let's talk further. Let's see what's possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have no idea where. I think it's Langdon or something like that, right?
Okay. All right.
I don't know where it is. Right?
Let's exchange information.
Okay. And I'm going to go out there in November, I think. So. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, something like that. Okay. Let's see. My friend Tyler forwarded me this meeting, and I thought maybe Tyler had been part of organizing the desire to have a Portland area tent, given all of the political activity that would benefit from having that kind of presence. Personally, I'm kind of on sabbatical. I've been doing so much external work, I needed to do some internal work. But the idea of supporting a local effort to do something other than us and them was satisfying enough that I bit, here comes the bait. Like, Fred, what are you doing on sabbatical? Well, seeing what bait to bite, I suppose, is the answer. Right? So I think I'm here because I'm willing to support an effort should someone decide to put one together. I've on sabbatical from my public teaching organization, Rose City NBC, all in Portland, and the Oregon Prison Project. And I'm tired, frankly. I want to go swimming. And so I'm willing to, Oh, and my doctoral dissertation was on the why empathy is effectiveness in intervening with violence. So I am really glad to be the support person for the building and maintaining of this thing. I'm not probably going to be one of the people who person the tent. I am really very glad to have that conversation about why, but not right in the moment. So that's me. That's why I'm here.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah.
Sure.
I mentioned I have an interview on my site somewhere with you about your program and your work and stuff. So good to see you again.
Yeah, you as well. You as well.
Thanks. Dave?
So I am in Berkeley with Edwin. I have been one of the main people who have gone with Edwin to all these protests in LA as well as Sacramento and many times in Berkeley. I met Edwin a year and a half ago at an Indivisible Berkeley meeting, and we were part of a group that was, the group inside Indivisible was called Big Ideas, and I had some ideas and other people had different ideas, and Edwin kept whispering in my ear, it's empathy, And I have to say, I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and because I was pretty angry about what was happening, and but there was one of the really big early protests from, visitations from the right was happening soon, and I agreed that I would go with Edwin with his tent, whatever that was, to the protest. And it turned out to be a really crazy event. It was the one where, there were lots of people and lots of fighting and people getting hit with rocks. And it was quite crazy. And I don't know, I just took to it. And, the two sides ended up, this was one of the early rallies where, outspoken neo-Nazis and white supremacists came, the Oath Keepers, and it was really something. And Edwin and I ended up walking. The two sides were kind of lined up for battle, and then Edwin and I were walking between them, trying to get them not to fight with each other and come dialogue. And Edwin was carrying around these Hershey's Kisses he brings to these things she calls empathy kisses. And anyway, it was a really powerful experience, and it was also it was clear to me how dangerous things could really get, and that if I think the view, at least of a lot of the people on the left, besides being really upset, is we just have to do much more of what we've already been doing, and that'll fix the problem. And I just felt like that's not going to work. And so, we go to these things and do our best, but we need a lot more of us. I mean, we've often thought if there were 100 of us at one of these protests, or 200 of us, we might actually really be able to make a difference. But, I still feel we go there, we are a known entity. I guess I don't know how you all came upon us, but we're enough of a known entity that you're here too. And so it feels important. That's who I am.
Okay,
That's why I'm
thanks.
here, anyway.
So yeah, Dave is fearless. So it's been great working with Dave, going to these different events. So it's been a great partner. And recently, Bill joined us and was here at the last last pop-up. Those right-wing group came to Berkeley 2 weeks ago, and the three of us were there. So what I thought I'd do is give a bit of an overview, share some of the pictures, photos we have, and some of the links, and just go through, give an overview of what we've done, kind of the resources that are out there, then see if there's any questions, and then see if, kind of what the next steps are. Who would like to, take kind of a leadership role for Portland, and what can we do to support you? And see, somebody was talking, or was that? I guess not. There was a little notice. So, here I want to show you the website.
I think there was one other person there, and
Oh, is there somebody else on the call?
There's Jennifer Chemnitz.
Yeah, but sorry, you can't see me. My browser didn't work for Zoom,
okay.
So I can see all of you and I can hear you.
okay, cool.
So yeah, I am here because of Wilderness. I've worked with her in the alternative medicine field, and I don't have specific training in empathy, but I have been finding my way into empathy and compassionate listening and speech in my alternative medicine work over the last, I suppose, decade and a half. And I'm wanting to take it further, and I see how polarized things are out there, how people are on the edge of argument and worse, violence, and engaging in that way with each other. And I'd like to be part of the solution to that. And I'm really I'm all ears about what this is about. It isn't something I've even heard of, the Empathy Tent idea. So I'm open. I'm interested.
Oh, great. Thanks. Sorry I didn't see you there since you didn't have a video, but I just opened the participants list and I see everyone there. So yeah, thanks for that. So I will share the screen here. And I think this is the right screen to share. Oh, no, that's not it. That is Empathy Tent join. Is that the one? Yeah, that's the one. Okay, so this is, if you go to empathytent.com, if you click, just put in empathytent.com on your browser, you click it. It goes to the Empathy Culture of Empathy website, and there's a Empathy Tent. This is from the old Occupy days, so I'll go explain that a bit later. So this is our homepage here, the Empathy Tent. We're transforming us versus them to we're all in it together. I think, Fred, you had mentioned that. And this is a group that we've set up several times at UC Berkeley on Sproul Plaza. And this is a class actually at UC Berkeley that's on empathy, and it was organized by Alyssa, and she's done it for 2 years. Actually been doing empathy, class and training, and we set up in Sproul Plaza, and the students come and we do empathy circle training with the students there. And so our kind of tagline here is building a culture of empathy with empathic listening, dialogue, empathy circles, circle facilitation, training, conflict mediation, mediation training. We do de-escalation, do different arts, and empathic design, which I don't know if anyone's familiar with human-centered design. It comes out of the design community. It's a process that's very empathy-oriented. And so we do that and a lot more. It's all geared towards building a culture of empathy, really raising empathy to be a primary social value. And we've got a bunch of media. If you check the website, you can click through. Dave and I went to Los Angeles and set up the Empathy Tent at a impeached Trump rally. And there was a counter demonstration. We set up the Empathy Tent and had people from both sides come and sit down in the tent, and we did mediations, did 6 pairs of mediations, like in the tent, right up at the, across from the, downtown Los Angeles police station and on the City Hall grounds on there, just right in front of City Hall. And of the 6 pairs, each one ended with hugs, with the left and the right giving each other hugs, as well as agreeing to do follow-up empathy circle dialogues, is what we call kind of a mutual empathic listening process that we do. And then there's some article, from a lot of different places. There's the Sacramento Bee, and we went to a rally there. And this is, if you go then scroll down, you'll see all these different, every pop-up that we've done since 2011 is, which is when the Empathy Tent was first set up. And the first pop-up we did with the Empathy Tent was at Occupy Wall Street, or in Berkeley. So I was seeing that there was that Occupy Wall Street was set up as us versus them. It's 99% against the 1%, but it was still, in essence, an us versus them movement. And so we were trying to bring in, it's really 100% empathy. We're trying to listen to everyone. So we offered, we set up the tent and offered empathic listening and, circle process, had a lot of people come by and we listened to them. And tried to do, some mediation, and had a table with different art supplies. People could come and sit. And so we were just starting to learn, how to bring empathy into environment like this, you know, into a kind of a more of a social, political environment. And we were only there 2 weeks, and they shut it down. The police shut down the Occupy Wall Street in Berkeley. And we were just, I think, starting to get some techniques that could have helped turn it around. This was a totally dysfunctional environment. The groups were all at each other's throat. The second day I was there was a knife fight. I mean, somebody with the biggest knife, Bowie knife I've ever seen in my life. It was huge. He was like slashing at this guy that had a pipe, and they were going at each other. And so anyway, they needed a lot of support and help there to kind of to turn that around. And we didn't have the resources and the tools at that time to really turn around the environment, to make it a positive environment. But I think now we could probably do it. You know, I think we have the skills for doing it. There's been various pop-ups that we've done at UC Berkeley. This was a class where we had a bunch of students, come, and we spent the day. The students were kind of supporting this. They were doing sort of a Ferris Bueller's Day Off kind of a event around the empathy tent. They were all bringing different they were doing yoga and music and dance. And I mean, you can even, if you go there, you can actually see it. This was, I don't know if you're, this is, yeah. So I just quickly, we had a whole group, all kinds of students hanging out. They're doing laughing yoga. They were having, dancing, just having, just a lot of fun. Everybody could hold their own class, basically. So somebody was doing Tai Chi, and then we had, there was a little bit of singing. And then we had, we're doing some circle process and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. And then, at different times in Berkeley, we set up the empathy tent. This was at a rally. This was, maybe about 4 years ago. And that's Barbara Lee, our Congress representative in Berkeley. And we set it up and would offer for listening and have people come by and just listen and talk. And these are just some photographs of different the tent at different events. And then I started setting up in Berkeley, downtown Berkeley, set up the empathy tent, and would just offer free listening. People could come by and just be heard about whatever they wanted, or we do empathy circle practice. Had like a test here. And you can go through to this site and you can play all these videos to get more of a sense of the type of things that we did. Like here's an empathy in the eyes test. So people come by and we hand them a pen and a questionnaire, and they can test their empathy, how empathic they are, by reading the emotions in these eyes. And this is from the Cambridge, University of Cambridge in the UK, from the Autism Center. They have this test. And I don't know if you've heard of Sidewalk Talk. We've worked with them. They go to different cities. They have different cities where they do listening on the streets. And we worked together with them in Oakland, set up the tent. And then they were doing listening. We were also offering listening and different practices. And that was, again, together with Sidewalk Talk. And Sidewalk Talk, there was just a little video done, a 1-minute video, just got 11 million views. So they're taking off with their listening on the street program. And then we have, here's a video of us again at Sproul Plaza, and working with the students. This is in Sacramento. There was a right-wing rally in Sacramento, and we're on the left, kind of liberal, progressive, and so we were the only ones that came to this event. And we set up the empathy tent, and we had circle process that we were doing. And we actually had people, like several members from Identity Europa. I don't know if any of you know Identity Europa, but they're the group that was actually in Charlottesville with the tiki torches. And so we actually sat down, and we ended up talking about the Holocaust, and, you know, Dave is Jewish, so they were having a dialogue with him, and we were actually teaching them how to do empathy circle practice, and they were actually trying to do it. You know, we actually had some very interesting dialogues with them. And this was, and we did get, you know, media attention for that. So in the paper, they wrote an article, which was pretty good for us, was protesters keep their cool at pro-Trump, anti-Trump rallies, and the empathy tent helps. So they were just giving us credit for helping with the conflict. There was no counter group right nearby, but a couple months earlier, there had been the right wing group had met there, as well as Antifa had come out, and they'd had a knockdown, drag out, you know, fights. I think someone was stabbed as well. But this time it was like really a lot of police presence. And then Dave and I also went to LA for this Trump rally, and there was a filmmaker who saw us in Berkeley, and she's making a documentary called Trump Phobia. And she said, she'd been around the East Coast, you know, around the country, going to all these different demonstrations. And she came by the tent in Berkeley and she interviewed us and said, you know, you're the only ones doing what you're doing. There's nobody else trying to bridge the divide. And so she actually paid for us to come down to LA. And there was a impeach Trump rally, and then there was a counter rally. This is the one I was mentioning. And we set up, this is a city hall, right in front of City Hall, and across the street's the police station. And there must have been like 2,000 or 3,000 or 4,000 people just marched, you know, past the front of the tent. And we were able to get, you know, Trump supporters and anti-Trump folks to sit down. And hopefully it's part of a documentary. So the filmmaker was there and, you know, kind of set up and videotaped this. It hasn't come out yet, but she's still working on it. So it's called Trump Phobia if you want to look it up. So, you know, we keep trying different things. And then it was after Charlottesville that the right wing was coming again, which is Joey Gibson and Patriot Prayer, who is the main organizer for the event, the last one in Portland. And so I reached out to Joey and I asked him if he'd be willing to do an empathy circle with one of the counter organizers. And he said, sure, I'll do it. So I reached out to the counter, you know, the left-wing organizers, because there was about 3 or 4 counter events. And it was really hard to get anyone to take part. But then Megan said she was willing to do it. And we were able to do about a 25-minute empathy circle online on Zoom. And this is something I hope we can do more of too, like before these events happen, that we can actually bring the leaders together and have them do online empathy circles. And it kind of helps build rapport. And this video, for example, got 5,000 views. And it's a lot of on the right who are seeing this as well as the left. So by seeing how these empathy circles, you know, using empathic listening, active listening, reflective listening, you know, it goes by different names, how it works, kind of the basic rules of an empathy circle. We hope we can propagate it and have, you know, others do it. Just first they'll see how it's done, and then hopefully they'll be able to do it, you know, themselves, or be sort of prepared or be interested in taking part in an empathy circle. So again, if you go all the way through, there's, you know, you can see, you know, go to each event that we did, and these events link through to another website, which is a Google site, and that's where we put kind of the individual pages. And this is, if you go to that home page, with, you just click through any of those links will take you here. You'll see this photograph, and this is Christian Piucciolini. I don't know if anybody saw his documentary on MSNBC on breaking hate. So he was in a right-wing extremist, Nazi group, and he got out, and it was because people empathized with him. They listened to him. They and he was able to start seeing their humanity, and they saw his humanity, and that's what kind of brought him out. And then he started this organization, can't remember the name, it's on hate, breaking hate or something. I can't remember the organization. But anyway, he just did a program this last weekend. If you can get a recording of that, it's a really good program where he shows someone who was at Charlottesville on the right came to him, and they started dialoguing. He developed a rapport, connection, and then they went, and the three of them actually had a dialogue with the mother of the woman that was killed, and it ended with that person, the two of them hugging, and really fostering kind of connection between them. And then if you kind of scroll down, you can see more different events again, and it's over here on the right on the other here where you can see the different events that we went to. You can just click through. You can see each of the individual events, and there's videos. This, for example, is a little video of why I'm grateful for the empathy tent. This was at UC Berkeley, and some student came by and said, "I am so grateful for what you're doing. It's like all I see is this chaos and violence, and here's this empathy tent holding space for this empathic way of being." So we get that a lot. People coming by and really expressing a lot of gratitude. This is an empathy circle there with the right-wing organizers. That's Amber. She was the organizer for most of the Berkeley events on the right, and she's taking part in an empathy circle with someone on the left. And we've done a bunch of these, at this event. And she's like this total supporter now of the empathy tent. She says, "I want to give a shout out to the empathy tent guys. Great group, and really enjoyed my chat today. I really do like this idea, and the people who run it, great people, great idea. Again, Edwin, I want you to know I love this empathy tent idea. I see much progress being made through a program like this, and that was a genius idea." And that's like the right-wing organizer for this event, for the event there. So instead of protesting when people come out, we actually go and talk to them and engage in empathic dialogue and actually use all our empathy skills to empathize with them and try to support dialogue. We were just at this rally that Bill was and Dave were at, and this last week, and this was in our local paper. The Berkeley side, and again, Amber, she was the organizer of the right wing, and then Dave was there, and this is, I think, a communist, I'm not quite sure who it was, but Dave was helping with the dialogue, and it was mentioned in the local paper. And then, these are just kind of different links to the organization. The police wouldn't let us take the tent because they're afraid of the poles and being used as weapons, which is kind of crazy, but something we're going to have to address. And so we set up our tent signs just on this peace wall in the park in Berkeley. I walked around with this sign, "I support building a culture of empathy." So, walked in the groups, and we did some empathy circles on the ground. Again, Amber was there, holding up a sign. This is someone who's a right-wing media person who's saying, and I take that sign now and I go to people and I say, "Do you support building a culture of empathy?" And they say, "What does that mean?" And I use that as a gateway to have a dialogue with them. And then I say, "Do you support this?" And then, ask them to hold it up if they do. And So we got a bunch of pictures of that, and so that's kind of a, I want to give just sort of an overview of what we do, and kind of just give you a sense, and kind of just open it up for maybe any comments, Dave or Bill, from your experiences that you'd like to share before we open it up to general comments or questions.
Dave, you? Oh, okay, well, I'll go. One thing you didn't mention, which I'm sure is on the website, but we went to the protest where the families, they're protesting the family separation at the border. And that had much more opportunity for dialogue and listening. And so it was a very powerful, there was a young African-American woman who came and talked about her struggles to fit in socially and things like that. And it was a very emotional ending, very good. And then there was another man who had, in a wheelchair, who had been abused and wanted somebody to know that when this is child abuse, which it is, and that, that he had been abused, and that whenever this sort of thing is put out there are millions of other people who have been abused who also feel that and have post-traumatic stress. So, I can't change the world, but I could listen to this guy, and he could feel heard. And now his story as well. So I feel that is a very powerful thing, and very moving and very satisfying.
Yeah, so we go to events, not just sort of the heavy conflict ones. We'll go to demonstrations, or we've also just set up in the park and, offered listening to anyone that wants to come by, sort of in a public way. So there's that aspect too.
And I'll just mention real quickly, I'm trying to get started what we call the Empathic Listening Challenge. It's on Facebook. And hopefully what we're trying to do is an entree. So I have some stress balls and things like that. It's not quite together yet, but it's one way of, introducing the concept and making it go viral. So if you're interested in more information, I'll let you know. Thank you.
Dave?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add was, I don't think you mentioned this, right? I was just a little distracted, but we've spent a bit of energy trying to get the city of Berkeley to support what we're doing, so we're not the only ones out there. There's all this energy going into what the police are going to do and what sort of ordinances they're going to put in place, but there's been no energy within the community of thinking about how to respond or how to approach these protests and the left, the hard left, hard right antipathy, for reasons I think I understand, but I'm not sure of. And, but I still feel that that's an effort that we need to put more energy into. And I think people in communities around the country need to think about is how can we together figure out how to dial it down somehow so that we can actually talk about dialogue about what's really going on. Because I think if you actually, sit down and ask people, well, what is everybody even fighting about? I think a lot of people, there's the obvious stuff that people are fighting about, but there's a lot of stuff that really needs to be talked about in a sort of deeper ways than are happening. And I feel that, it's not enough for us to go out to these events and put our arms up, and try to get people to stop. There needs to be a sort of civil society movement that is about doing what we're talking about. And so I just think it's important to think about not just going out there with a tent, but how else can we make stuff happen? That's all.
Yeah, and we're sort of holding space for that so for that awareness, for fostering that dialogue. And Dave and I went to the Berkeley City Hall, and Dave gave a really nice 2-minute talk to the city council, kind of expressing kind of our position for dialogue. So we'll keep doing that as well. So it's a bigger picture than just going to conflict zones and kind of being there. It's, you know, really how do we foster and build a culture of empathy and for that social transformation where that becomes a real social value. You're muted, Dave.
We're also going to Politicon, which is a big political convention in Los Angeles in October. There's pundits and famous partisans and media people and 600 journalists, and we decided we would go. They wouldn't let us in for free. And we decided to pay and bring our tent, and we may get time in the program. We're not sure about that. We're discussing if we get some time in the program, what sort of event we would like to see happen. So that's something else we're doing. We're trying to, I sort of have a key man idea, which we haven't really managed to make happen yet, which is if we could get some leadership type people, national level leadership type people who are fighting about guns or immigration or whatever the topic is, to be willing to sit down and do a recorded empathy circle that got some really, was meaningful and was educational, and that the two of them ended up with, maybe we could actually try to work together to come up with some solutions to what we're arguing about. That would be the kind of breakout moment that could really change things. So we're hoping maybe at Politicon we can find people who would be willing to do that. So
Yeah,
things we're trying to do.
Yeah, and so I would say one thing we're doing is moving into into the political world. A lot of times in politics, people think, oh, that's just greedy, selfish. Let's just work, for our own self, and empathy, our own little community for empathy. But we're trying to really move this into the public sphere, in these demonstrations, sort of on the streets, as well as, I'll just show you this real quick. This was we set up at UC Berkeley. We had a radical empathy forum with, we have our local assembly candidates running for office, and we have 12 of them, and we held a forum where we had the candidates actually come take part, and we held empathy circles where the candidates for this office did small two groups of 6, and they talked about how do we create a more empathic society, as well as they used empathic listening with each other, reflective listening. So that's just another way that we've been, trying to bring this into the political sphere. And, we got a bunch of media for that too. It was on the local NPR station and the Berkeley newspaper, the University of California Berkeley newspaper. So with that is we can open it up, what's any thoughts you have, any questions, or just wondering how all this lands for everyone.
I can say something.
Sure.
That's right. First, I just want to say I'm really impressed, and it's really moving to see everything you guys are doing. I really like the idea of, approaching it more politically and seeing if you can get backing in that way. I think that's super cool. Let's see, personally, I'm more interested, I think, in the, not necessarily the frontline stuff, like being at the riots or and rallies and stuff that are more aggressive and things like that. I really like what you were just talking about, talking to the candidates. That's really cool. I that's such a unique way, I think, of approaching it too. And I'm just really liking all these different ways of approaching it instead of kind of thinking in just in one way. You're really kind of trying to stream out. And yeah, I'm inspired by that. And I did have a couple questions. I was curious, like, when you guys said, so in Portland, I mean, we have, well, really mostly during the summer, but I mean, there's like an event and a fair. I mean, every single day of the week at the least, there's like some sort of event going on. So I feel like those would be really good opportunities to set up something like that. And the only reason that I am not the best person to be at like more potentially violent things is because I have chronic illness, and it like that can be very stimulating in like a not healthy way. So it's better for me to kind of err on the other side of things. But I was thinking, when you guys go to like other events that are maybe not political, do you have to, I'm assuming you have to get some kind of permit or something to be there, or how do you guys set up those sorts of things? Like, who do you have to talk to?
So yeah, there's different types of events. So like in Berkeley, you can set up a 10 by 10 in the park. You can set up a 10 by 10 tent or canopy. It's really a canopy that we have. We just call it the empathy tent. And so there's nothing required for that. So in public spaces, you can set up. We've set up next to the farmers market because it's right on Saturdays, a farmers market. We set up a few chairs. We've got the tent, signs, and then people come by, and we got the cards that say free listening, and people can just come sit down. We on the card it says, so for example, this one, if it's 10 minutes of free listening. I don't know if it's made a little blurred, but anyway. So we hand those out. Say, here's we walk around and want some free listening, and it says free empathy and hugs. Is feeling, imagining, connecting with the humanity of another. Present this card to receive 10 plus minutes of deep listening. No judgments, advice, analysis, detachment, diagnosing, sympathy, pity, or interruptions. So we kind of hand that out. People come and they sit down, and we do just reflect back. We do active listening. So like, I'm hearing you're really wondering, how do you set this up? Are there requirements? Are there some kind of requirements needed for setting up the tent? And you're kind of curious. And I'm hearing that because of your, just physical illness and so forth, that going into really difficult environments is really not what you feel comfortable with. But something more like a farmer's market or something like that is more of what would feel comfortable doing. And so just using active listening like that to reflect back what we hear people say. And if you have NVC training, you can go in, if you feel comfortable, go into feelings and needs, as well. And people just appreciate it. And it's a way of having a presence. And like farmers markets, sometimes the tent, they'll allow the tent just as a, public service. So you can set up and have an audience of people coming by. It's a way of connecting with people to see if anyone who's kind of interested in taking part. So something like that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question, if that's okay.
Sure. We're here for it.
I was wondering where you've found the most, where you believe you've had the greatest impact, like what kind of events and kind of contexts and things like that have you found to be most effective? Yeah.
So for effectiveness, I like the really conflicting ones because there's all this, raw conflict energy. We set up there, here's this empathy tent, and, people come by and say, there's all this energy, this violence and, aggression. And here's this nice little empathy tent, kind of holding space for this, more sensitive awareness, empathic, caring presence. This is what I try to have in my family, with my friends. And so it's just nice to see it, somebody holding that space within this conflict, so that conflict is not dominating everything. So I think that has that's where we've gotten the most media attention. So you can see the media picks up on that, and then the media gives it a ripple effect. So we've been in Fox News, with Fox and Friends. So Dave talked about it. They were very ridiculing, saying, oh, in Berkeley, they're talking about bubbles and empathy tents. And so they were kind of like ridiculing it. And they were actually saying, the empathy tent is for Antifa, that Antifa can come and get massages in the empathy tent.
Gosh.
And they showed a picture, but the picture it was actually a right-wing Trump supporter came to the empathy tent. And if you know anything about the dress, you'd know it's a right-wing person. He sat down, and I was starting to do empathic listening with him, and he was talking about, I really hate the healthcare, it's so expensive, and just sharing some of his concerns. And he said, oh, my shoulders are really hurting because I'm wearing this bulletproof vest. He had the helmet and a bulletproof vest on because he was afraid of getting, killed there. And he said, oh, my shoulders are hurting. And then there was one of our other members, Stephanie. He said, oh, and she said, oh, I'll give you a massage. So she's giving him a massage on his, shoulders. I'm giving him empathic listening, and the media came by and took a picture of that. So it kind of got on the news. And then Fox took that and turned it totally around, saying it was, anyway, it got us a bunch of, media on, I think on 2 programs on Fox News, among, other places. So it's the conflicts where it gets the most media. If we go just listen to people at a farmer's market, people say, oh, that's nice, and we'll take advantage of it and really be grateful for being heard about, very personal issues. And so that has a sort of a personal resonance, but sort of that ripple effect. I think it's the, being in the middle of those really big conflicts. So I don't know, Dave, do you have a?
Yeah, I'll just
still.
My answer to that would be that, I think, that kind of stuff feels good to us. And, it's more effective than going to the farmer's market for the same reason that Edwin said, because you don't know how your media attention, who it's going to impact and whether it'll do something. That brings us more support in one way or another. I guess in a way, that's what I was talking about before. I feel like, we're sort of, it's a game of persistence here where we have to try one thing or another until we manage to do something that really makes an impact in some way that then, goes viral or something. We've been trying to get an in-depth article written in a serious magazine about what we're doing. Something like, where, next week on Wednesday night when we have our meeting, there's 100 people who want to come to the meeting. Because I think that's the kind of thing that's going to take, to really have an impact. So, but it feels, doing everything you do feels good. So that's my answer.
Yeah. Bill, your experience? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm not so, I'm a little timid about the violent demonstrations, mostly also because people are not ready for empathic listening a lot of times there. But, I agree, we really have to do everything. I'm hearing, I think this is an existential crisis for our species. And So when I was a special ed teacher, I could say, you know, I'd see all the news or something, but I knew that I could take the kids in my class and I could make some improvements. And that felt good. And so I find it very precious when I have these things. They're very satisfying, and they're very deep. And just imagine walking out your door, instead of worrying about being mugged or anything like that, you know that 60% of the people, if you really said, could you listen to me for a second, and would be conversant with this, would be open to listening. Just imagine opening your door to that instead of what we have today. And that's a worthwhile project. And I like all the different things that we're doing. And we're basically going to, as Dave said, we'll be persistent till something really comes through. Because when you do it, it's real. And the benefits are real, and they're right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to add something.
Oh, not Celia.
Yeah, my image comes later than my voice. What I realized also is because of the contrast, when there's tension and then you see an empathy tent, then it makes the biggest impact. Like I thought, you know, it was more, the art walk was more like a party kind of a thing. And I thought, well, people inside, they're looking at all these beautiful artwork and they're happy with their glass of lemonade, and who's gonna come outside, you know? Nobody. So what is the contrast there? And that was indeed interesting for me to realize. Okay, how could I create contrast that this makes sense? You know, that there is a draw to it. That yeah. Besides, of course, doing it, indeed, being there and walking around with my T-shirt, empathy, we listen. That T-shirt alone gave a lot of response, and handing my flyer and asking to take a picture. So I support a culture of empathy. So that is a next step to think about. How does that work with contrast, and how could we purposely create it? Like, indeed, if Bill, you say opening your door and there's someone to listen to you, so that is a contrast, because that you don't expect that. So could it be in places where you don't expect it? So it's a new thought for me. Thank you.
Yeah, there's something about going out there and doing it and acting that then kind of opens the space for new ideas too. It's sort of learning by doing is, it's just, you're kind of dealing with, you're viscerally feeling, I find, I'm viscerally feeling the environment, and from there kind of new creative ideas, you know.
Yeah, and also this is new, you know, we have to invent everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but it's interesting.
Yeah. So anyone else?
Yeah, I have an example. After about 6 years, excuse me, about 6 years of teaching nonviolent communication in the prisons, because of how deeply effective correctional officers are, they have a very high suicide rate and a very low average age of death and all of the stress-related diseases, et cetera, et cetera. Because of the way the inmates were changing as a result of going through our programs, they came to us and asked, well, what can we do with the correctional officers? Because this was shortly after the third suicide in 2013, and that was in March, right? So it was like, what do we do? And so we helped them establish mindfulness-based stress reduction in the Oregon correctional system for correctional officers. Now, I think I totally agree with you. I think if you just do it, right, somebody's going to come to you and say, how can we apply this to our lives in a particular way? And so I'm really deeply touched, Edwin, with how it's unfolded and what you've been doing and the accomplishments you have there. I'm also passing out with tiredness. I want to say that if you are going to send out the contact information to everybody, send mine. I'm glad to hear from you all, and we can talk more. In the meantime, I need to lie down.
Okay.
I need to go to sleep. Right.
Do you want to put your email in the chat box there?
I have no idea what you just asked me to do.
Okay. If you go down to the bottom of the screen, there's a little chat box. It says chat in the very center.
Oh, chat.
And then that opens a window on the right.
Okay.
And you just type your email address in there, and I can kind of add you to have. We'll be posting on the Facebook event as well, but it's good to have emails for connecting.
So I wanted to just.
Oh, I just want to get maybe get Jennifer and Tony in first for the.
Well, like I said, this is all very new to me, but I really appreciate the really detailed overview that you gave, and I'll be looking at the Culture of Empathy website. I'd love to hear the stories from you all, and I find that I work in customer service at an indie bookstore, and I actually see so many people every day, and I do a little of this all the time with people to turn their moods, but I really want to do more. I want to do something more in depth, and I see so much need for it. So I'm really excited that you're doing this. I'm excited to understand more about what you're doing and know more about it. And I really want to get out there and be part of it. So I'm excited. Thank you.
Thanks. Tony, do you want to?
Sure. Really inspiring and fun to hear some of your anecdotes about the impact it's having, and to hear Fred's as well. And I have some ideas percolating, and I'm in the LA area, so I'd love to come to the Politicon if you'll have me, but I'll email you about that. Mm-hmm. And overall, just more of what I mentioned in the first part, really encouraging to see it, and I resonate with what everyone has said, where I think the doing of it will bring what the next steps need to be. And like I said, it seems very obvious to me that that you're creating some sort of magnetism with what you're doing, and I think I wouldn't worry about the rest of it. I think it's coming along as it's meant to. So well done.
Okay. Thanks. Dave,
I just wanted to add to what you said before, Edwin, which is, we go out there and we do it, and stuff happens. And, last time we were out there, somebody mentioned, one of our team members mentioned, well, these guys, Edwin and Bill, were walking around with these signs they were holding up, which I was then photographing, and it said, "I support a culture of empathy," and I don't know, what did it say on the other side? I can't remember. But
it says what it means: common humanity, mutual dialogue, listening.
And they were standing between, 30 battle-ready policemen holding up these things. I was photographing them, and then one of our team members said it would be good to have some balloons that we could launch into the group that said empathy on them. And then we started sort of riffing around on that, and we started imagining having these kind of floats, a big float, that if you could bring a big float to a protest that just floated up above everybody and it said empathy on the top of it, that's like would be a real presence. And the real point I was trying to make, so we started, coming up with what I would call sort of guerrilla empathy ideas. And I think that kind of stuff, you don't need a lot of people for, actually. Mm-hmm. And, if we could start to get people around the country, we do something like that, that would certainly get on the media when they're following these events. So that was a really specific way in which doing led to some ideas that were just really off the wall or out of the box, So guerrilla empathy.
I'm all for that.
Balloons. We're thinking of beach balls. I was thinking empathy it says empathy on it. And when people are in these kind of scrums, we throw the empathy beach ball into the middle of it, and they can start hitting that around. So anyway, it's about innovation and coming up with ideas and, brainstorming and trying things, try things, see if it works, try something else. And so we just keep kind of iterating around. So I guess that's sort of, I don't know if there's more, but like, what would be a next step for like Portland to get something started? Like, is there something you'd like to, request, something to offer? What do you need, or kind of a next step? And so what yeah, Courtney, looks like you unmuted. So,
well, I'm very interested in this. If you guys are willing to partner with people up here, I know of at least 2, maybe 3 people who'd be willing to join me. If Wilderness is not up for the more conflicty sort of things, if that's not good for you, then that's fine. But I do have a handful of people who'd be willing to show up. I'm typically pretty good in those sorts of situations. I don't feel terribly uncomfortable, which I feel like is something I should use since it's there, and I feel like it's fairly unusual. But I would love to maybe talk to you guys about some additional conversations we could have, or trainings, just to learn from you guys a little bit more. So I've tried to do this sort of thing, like I said, 3 different times in 3 different ways, because I just was trying to figure it out, and trying different things. And so I've gone through 3 iterations, and I landed basically on what you guys are doing, where I was like, okay, well, next time I need to do this. And then I found you guys, and we're like, and that's what they're doing. So perfect. You guys have done it. So I would love to learn from you on, I know some de-escalation tactics. I've never done an empathy circle. I'm interested in learning what exactly that means. I haven't heard that language before, and I don't know how to do that. I know how to mediate a little bit, those sorts of things. But I've done more like one-on-one conversations with people. And so that's what I've done up until now. So I think if I was going to show up in a place like that, maybe I could set up a time with a couple of other people, or maybe this is that setting for that, to learn from you guys on what's worked for you in that setting and what hasn't worked. I don't know what you're up for as far as that goes, but and I'm on all of the Facebook event type things to hear about the rallies that are coming and things like that. And I actually, in an effort to create some empathy and build some relationships across divides for my job, I actually had coffee with Joey Gibson last fall. And so I have somewhat of a relationship with him. And so I hear about his events as they're coming up, the Patriot Prayer events. But I'm open to expanding that and showing up at different types of events. Like there's all sorts of stuff happening at the Portland ICE headquarters right now, and things like that I'd be happy to show up at. If I don't know, it just would feel so much better, like knowing you guys were like with us.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
We're totally there. We're totally here with you.
I don't know what the logic is there, but it just feels better.
Yeah, I've seen your videos. You were out there. You set up at some kind of an event, and you were offering listening.
NRA event, yeah.
The NRA event. You had NRA folks. That was like fantastic. I love seeing that.
My final step, and then it was like, okay, well, next time I think I need to have more people and maybe a tent. And that's when I literally found you guys.
Yeah, you're on the path. That's how it starts. You're on this. Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Bill?
Just really quickly, Courtney, so I'm sure you could get help from any one of us, and it's good. But I specifically, in those conflict situations, I was a trainer in nonviolent crisis de-escalation.
Okay.
So you can go on. I was a trainer since 1994 for Crisis Prevention Institute, CPI.
Okay.
Kind of see what they're doing, and so I could give you some specific, parameters and red flags, and and certain proactive things to do.
Okay. All that would be super helpful.
Sure.
Yeah, and Edwin is running some trainings many times a week where people are in. I don't know where you're at with that. They're doing that, and you could probably join some of that. We meet every Wednesday night at this time.
Okay.
And normally we do empathic listening. We do that part of the time. I don't know. I mean, you should maybe ask Edwin whether you could figure out what Edwin's doing, what the schedule is, with that stuff. We talked about. It's helpful to have a tent. We find it's helpful.
Okay.
When they don't let us bring our tent, like at some of the protests where they're worried about violence now, they're not letting us bring our tent. And we feel it's much more, the tent creates a kind of environment that is you feel like you're in some sort of container. We've had situations where the whole protest ends up around our tent, and it's kind of crazy. But a tent would be good if you could, join with some people and get the money together to put together a tent.
Mm-hmm.
We can tell you all about how we do that, what we do anyway. And, we're in the process of building a new website, which I hope will get up by Politicon, that has a lot of this stuff on it.
Okay.
But, you can engage with us as much as you want. We are, our goal is to spawn. That's our goal. So we're here.
Yeah. So we meet every Wednesday, so we can just keep meeting here and keep dialoguing like what we're doing and coming up with questions and answers and ideas and brainstorm. So we can meet again next week.
It's possible we would come up for the right thing.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 10-hour drive, so if there was a team up there that had an empathy tent and was kind of organized, I could fly up, and we could support, you there, and we have a pretty good relationship with Joey too. Done the empathy circle. The whole demonstration came into the empathy tent.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah, so it was like totally. It was like the center's focal point of the. And so anyway, that was, so actually I had thought of doing an empathy circle with him again, that we would actually I was thinking with Lou, he's one of our core team too, and Dave, Dave knows him, that we would actually get together and have an empathy circle online that's recorded, and then have a dialogue with him. And I have his phone number. I don't know if you have it too. He gave me his phone number. So we would actually have an empathy circle with him, sort of with our empathy team, and then model empathic listening. And just as like a first step, and then we could kind of open it up to others. Try to bring folks in from the left or whoever wants to talk to him with him. But it kind of models it, and then people see how it works. So that's would be the next step. Bring those 3 people to the next meeting. Yeah.
Sorry, my kiddo.
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great, and I will invite them next Wednesday, and I'll look at the calendar too and see what events are coming up. That one 2 weeks ago, but they do seem to be ongoing. So.
Yeah, the next one is in Seattle.
I saw that. Is that this Saturday?
Yeah, it's coming up pretty soon. Then the next one, I don't know if you want to come to Berkeley, but the next one here is the 18th, I think, of September.
Okay.
So I think that might be the next one on the list. But like you're saying, it's becoming a regular every several months, and they're not going to, Joey's not going to give up until kind of I think, until something happens.
Yeah.
And then it's always the same sort of response. Oh yeah, and I saw the videos of ICE at the ICE Center too.
Yeah.
They took down the encampment there. So that's something I've been thinking about, and and since this kind of got started at Occupy Wall Street, I'm imagining an Occupy Empathy, that we kind of occupy from the ground up our own movement around empathy and actually model empathy in the occupation. We need to kind of lay out strategies and stuff for that. So that's kind of percolating in the back, so.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I have other ideas too, but I'll bring my folks next week for sure.
That would be great.
Celia?
I want to say good night because it's 10:30 here, so my eyes are going down. Thank you all for learning about you, and looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, we'll see you next week, or to see you tomorrow, actually. So Celia and I are working on, we have an empathy training MOOC that we're working on. And so that's something you could be involved as well. We do a lot of empathic listening, and we're using the book Listening Well as the core curriculum. And so we go through a chapter of that book, and then we use empathic listening to discuss it. So the empathy circle process, and then have different exercises to deepen, our skills.
That's like a class that you're doing, or?
Yeah, it's the empathy. Let's see. I can send you put the link in for that. It's actually a design. We're trying to design an online training, which will be part of preparing people for the empathy tent. And I just put the link in, and you can join one of our teams. We meet every week, and probably need to form a new one because the other ones are sort of advanced in the book. We're sort of using that book as the curriculum.
Okay.
And I can also,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say to Courtney, I am not totally anti being at any of the rallies. I just have to pay attention to how I'm doing that day. So I would like to be involved in like all the ways that I can. I'm just putting it out there that like I'm not gonna be someone who's gonna be like, when shit gets really real, like when there's guns and bombings and like
tear gas and pepper spray and
that, like I can't, my body, like self-care, I just can't do that.
Yeah, you gotta be mindful of what you need.
Yeah, so but I'm not anti going to those places. I just have a threshold that that I'm not gonna stick out for. So yeah, and then I have a couple of people who are also interested and who are pretty involved politically in Portland, but couldn't make it tonight. So I'll talk to them some more as well. And and so the people that you know of that you were talking about, are they in Portland or Bend?
I know one in Portland and a couple here in Bend.
Okay. Cool.
But we make that drive, because we're in the middle of nowhere. So it's just something we do.
Yeah. It's a pretty quick drive, relatively speaking.
Yeah, not too bad. So, okay, well, great. Well, let's keep in touch then, and bring our people next week, and maybe we can take some more steps into what this might look like and what kind of places we could show up together. I'm going to look up that book too, Listening Well.
Yeah, maybe if there's enough of you, we could make that a separate meeting that we do if everyone has time. We'll see what we can talk about how we can make it work. But we're here to make it work.
Cool.
Yeah, if you review the Empathy Tent site, and then I just put in the link to the sort of auxiliary. It's a Google site, and you can. I'll just share this real quick. There's an activities starting to. So there's I wanted to give that sort of a toolkit for how to set up an empathy tent, right?
Oh,
so
cool.
you can make any kind of documentation about your experiences and thoughts. So we've there's each of the, starting to create like a separate web page for each of the kind of the aspects or tools. So here's the Empathy Tent card, you know, so it has contact info, says what we're about. Here's the little box with empathy kisses. You know, this is what we go around with. This is like so popular. When people are at these demonstrations, they get hungry and their energy low, and we go around and, you know, say, oh, here's some empathy kisses, you know, and then there's some cards in there and we hand them out. And so it really creates a lot of goodwill. There's sort of the info on the tent itself, you know, how to create the space. There's like an empathy in the eyes test. There's a flyer we have for how to hold an empathy circle, you know, kind of the steps, like the quick steps that we...
Super helpful.
And just going all the way through the free empathy card, the listening challenge that Bill was talking about. I'd like to do some live streaming because that's something I want to set up. There's something else. And here's the actual practices. So the listening, the empathy circles, so we create a separate page. And, you know, the signs, the how to set up the tent, like we have a whole, you know, design for being, the tent kind of holds a lot of different signs on it, and they're held up by Velcro, so you can kind of like quickly Velcro signs, you know, messages up on the tent, and these are the signs. So for example, you just click through and there'll be a picture of the, you know, these are the type of signs, and this is kind of how to make it with the Velcro, you know, kind of an example of how we, you know, of a sign, and kind of the banners, and like heal our empathy deficit, free speech, and there was the occupy empathy, which we did, like here to listen. So these are, you know, just kind of things you can kind of review and share with friends. Yeah.
Hey, Edwin?
Yeah.
Do you have Courtney and Wilderness's and Tony's email addresses?
I don't, so it'd be good to get that if you want to put it in the chat box here. We've got our Facebook. We're on Facebook. I think Friend did, but having the emails would be good.
I mean, because maybe it would be good for you, because if you all don't take that link right now, you're not going to have it. So you should either take it now, but you know, it'd be good to have email connection.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the chat box. I don't.
Down at the bottom, if you take your cursor down at the bottom of the window,
Yeah.
there's a menu at the bottom of the window.
I have audio, video. Oh wait, share. No, share. Participant.
Share screen, and then right next to it is chat.
Yeah, I don't have that.
So if you go down to the bottom of the window, it should say on the very left, it says
If she's on her phone, it might not be there.
No, I found it. It was a little weird.
Oh.
Yeah. I think
Well, you can email me, edwinrutch@gmail.com, and send me it too, or just on either way. So, oh, there it is. Okay, got it. Great.
Okay.
And I saw your message that you're needing to go, you're saying. Was that?
Who, me?
Oh, so see.
Tony.
Oh, Tony. Okay, from Tony. Okay. I have to take off, unfortunately. I've loved so much. I'm not in Portland, but I'm a flight attendant, so I can easily fly up there. And would love to come up and be part of it whenever you end up doing. So please keep me in the loop. And lastly, like Courtney, I would love some more training and resources. Okay, great.
So let's say we'll see each other next Wednesday night then.
Great. Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Great.
I really appreciate it.
So Edwin, you'll add them to the list for the emails next week, right?
Yep. I'm capturing those emails right now. So, and we'll do some empathic listening. Usually we do a bit of practice empathic listening. We're giving an overview. We'll post this. Maybe your friends can look at it so you don't have to repeat it. And then we'll do some, practice with empathic listening, which is kind of the core of the practice that we do. And it's the core of mediation. And, it's, if you're familiar with NVC, it'll feel very comfortable with it.
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you for
guys.
coming.
Yeah, this is awesome. Appreciate it. We'll see you next week.
Alrighty, look forward to it.
All right.
See you.
Bye.
Bye, Courtney. Bye,
Bye.
Wilderness. Jennifer. I capture these emails. Got Tony.
That's inspiring.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Wilderness.
You might want to stop recording.
Oh, that's a good thing.